Hey Plotter pals, it's Ryan here, and over the next few minutes we're going to have some fun. I'm going to show you how the Plottr Timeline works so you can begin visually planning and outlining your books. Let's dive in. Now you can think of the timeline as a kind of digital whiteboard or a cork board on your wall, except index cards are arranged with a drag and drop of your mouse and can't be eaten by your dog. There are three main elements of the timeline: chapters arranged horizontally across the top, plot lines, aka storylines, arranged vertically down the side, and scene cards, which occupy the intersection of chapters and plot lines. In Plottr, chapters are automatically numbered by default, meaning if you click the blue plus button to add a new chapter, it'll automatically be assigned the next number in sequential order. But the timeline is also highly flexible. For example, instead of using chapters, you might want to use a basic narrative arc structure. To do that, you just click on the chapter title and change it to whatever you'd like. For example, setup. Now if we fast forward, we can see what that would look like. And voila, we have our setup, inciting incident, rising action, and on we go. Now to revert back to our auto numbering system, all we have to do is click on the chapter title that we edited, highlight it, and delete it and click enter to save. And now we're back to where we started. You can also use Plottr's chapter functionality to arrange your story using beats or a framework like 7-point plot structure. There are practically no limits to how you can arrange your story. Like chapters, plot lines are also highly flexible. For example, you might wish to have a main plot line and then multiple subplot lines as you have here. To add additional plot lines, you would just click the plus button and add the name of the next plot line, for example, subplot number 3. Or alternatively, as you can see in our Pride and Prejudice demo, you might wish instead to have a main plot line alongside specific character plot lines, as you can see here. Or instead of using plot lines, you might wish to rename them as scenes. So you could call this scene number 1, scene number 2, etc. In this case, we can hover over subplot number 3 and delete it by clicking the garbage can icon that appears when we hover over it, and then confirming that we want to remove it. You can also easily adjust the color of your plot lines or storylines by hovering over the one you wish to change and clicking the color drop icon. From here you'll see the color library, and you can easily change the color by selecting one that's available here, or by typing in the hex code or name of the color and clicking the green choose button. Let's click this violet color here to assign it to this plot line. Now the final piece of the Plottr timeline are scene cards, which you use to visually arrange and identify your story events. To add a new scene card to a plot line, just hover over the space on the plot line where you'd like to add it, click, and then add a card title. Once you've clicked enter to save it, you can then click into it again to add a description. Now we'll cover scene cards in more detail in a future video, but for now the most important thing to understand is that each scene card contains a title and a description, which you can edit using this formatting bar right here. Now if you wish to save your card, click save, and if you wish to delete it, you can click the delete button. Let's add a brief description here and click save. Now when we hover over the scene card, you'll see that our brief description actually displays. With Plottr, it's also really easy to move around our scene cards along the timeline. To do that, just use your mouse to drag and drop the scene wherever you'd like it to go. In fact, Plottr's drag and drop functionality also extends to its chapters and plot lines. If we head back to our Pride and Prejudice demo, you'll see how useful this can be. Here, for example, if we drag chapter 3 onto chapter 4, all of the scene cards that were previously associated with chapter 3 are now associated with chapter 4. And the chapter titles have automatically renumbered. We can also drag and drop our plot lines to rearrange them. There are a few other features of the timeline you should be aware of as well. For example, if you click the plus button that appears when you hover between scenes, you can add both a chapter and a card at the same time, as you see here. You can also add a chapter by clicking the plus button that appears when you hover in between chapters. Finally, let's close out this tutorial by going over the Timeline Toolbar, which you can see here. Now the Timeline Toolbar features a number of options to help you navigate the timeline. The Filter button lets us display only those scene cards which match specific criteria. For example, certain characters, places, or tags, as we'll cover in the future. Now, if we click the romance tag here, for example, you'll see only those cards display which have the romance tag. And we can remove the filter from the timeline by clicking the X button that displays here. The flip button, meanwhile, allows us to view our timeline vertically, with our chapters arranged down the side and our plot lines arranged along the top. We can also use the zoom buttons to zoom in or out of the timeline. We can also click the fit button to see the entire timeline on our screen at once, and click the reset button to go back to our original setting. The scroll buttons allow us to easily scroll through the timeline, and we can also click beginning, middle, or end to go to a specific part of our timeline. And the export button allows us to export our timeline to a Microsoft Word document, as we'll explore in a future lesson. So thanks so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notifications of future videos.